So Microsoft just announced their brand new Surface Pro line for 2017, and this was a really interesting announcement because we got the Surface laptop only a few weeks earlier, and Panos Panay had come out and said, oh, we're not going to really do anything for the Surface Pro 5, it's not going to be a big deal. So everyone knew that this Shanghai event was coming, but we all assumed it was going to be a very minor spec bump to the Surface Pro. Was going to be a legit Surface Pro 5. They were probably just going to do a Kaby Lake bump and leave it at that. But no! They changed a fuck ton about the Surface Pro with the new Surface Pro, not 5. We got some leaks before the event where very minor casing redesigns were shown. Like, they rounded out the edges so it would be easier to hold in tablet mode and stuff. But other than that, we all expected Kaby Lake, footnote, end of story. But we got way more than that today. And this was like a roller coaster of emotions for me as I kind of just scrolled through the news and watched the event, because I slept through the event. I sleep in the days now because I work overnights. But let's go over what they talked about, what they revealed with the new Surface Pro, not 5. So the big thing for us, for artists, is probably the new Surface Pen that's coming out. It now jumps from 1024 to 4096 levels of pressure, which, thumbs up. But even more importantly, the latency is now basically non-existent, which the latency was never really bad on the Surface Pens before, but now it's basically, you can't even tell. It's better than the Apple Pencil in terms of latency, and it has tilt support. So it matches the Apple Pencil and most of the Wacom pens and most of the features that you want now. Because unlike the Apple Pencil, it still has the eraser on the back like the previous generation, as far as I'm aware. So this pen is fucking baller as shit now. Like, it's, if you wanted, like, you have a Cintiq pen, essentially, with your Surface. And that was, like, a huge problem, especially with something like the Surface Studio, where it's just like, yeah, this is a great piece of kit, and it's really, like, well-designed and stuff. But this pen isn't a one-for-one, really, kind of alternative to something like a Cintiq 27 or a Mobile Studio Pro gives you. Now, with the new Surface Pen, you're pretty much there. Like, yeah, you only have, you don't have the 80, 81, 20, whatever levels of pressure, but there's diminishing returns. Like, we've already kind of established that even, you know, 1024 levels of pressure, like, you're good, like, you're fine. So, like, we can, like, throw numbers at you as much as you want, but you're getting, in terms of, like, raw experience, you're totally fine. So the Surface Pen, the new one, is fucking fantastic. It's one of, if not, like, the best pen out right now. Like, Wacom's pen, we still have to wait for it to actually come out and test it, but just based on what the numbers are telling us, it's very comparable to the top end of the market, and it's better than the Apple Pencil now, really. I mean, it has way better battery life, and it has the eraser, and you can use it with x86 apps on Windows. So, like, there you go. It's fucking great. So that was probably, like, the single biggest, most important thing. Right now, it looks like tilt is only going to work on the new Surface Pro, the Surface Pro Not 5. The pen will work on previous Surface devices, but the tilt functionality is only for the new one. I think that's kind of stupid, because, like, people who just bought the Surface Studio are probably fucking pissed. I would have made sure that was backwards compatible with the Studio, or I would have just held off on launching the Studio till now. I think a lot of people who bought Studios are going to be pissed off. If I bought a Studio and then this comes out, I would be livid, because I just dropped, like, what, $3 or $4 grand? But, you know, Microsoft be Microsoft. They got to do their thing. So the pen is really good, despite the fact that anyone who bought a Surface Studio is probably livid. The pen itself, really good stuff, and it's probably, like, the single biggest reason that I would want to upgrade was to be able to get that better pen. But let's talk about the device itself. We talked about the curved edges. It's a little bit thinner, a little bit lighter. They always do that, but, like, we've kind of reached, like, Microsoft has so engineered the Surface Pro so well that, like, really, the only reason they aren't going thinner or lighter at this point is because they want to keep the USB-A port there, which I think is probably a good call. They did not add a USB Type-C. They're sticking with DisplayPort, which some people like, some people don't like. I can see arguments for both. It's definitely better for future-proofing the device to put on USB-C. But even, like, 2 years down the line since USB-C kind of introduced in, like, Apple's MacBook, we haven't seen a huge uptick in USB-C adoption, other than, like, putting it in smartphones, which doesn't matter. Having a smartphone connector isn't going to drive your ecosystem in terms of, like, desktop devices. So I think it's probably, the reason they probably stick with the DisplayPort was because, like, you will need less adapters. Again, like, it's less functional, but it makes, like, your life easier if you're just using that for display out. So I can see either way on that. But the ports didn't change between the last generation Surface. The screen is still pretty much the same, other than like having a better digitizer built in. Core M and Core i5 SKUs are now fanless. I don't know how they did that. I haven't checked, so maybe it's possible that the Core i5 is a Y series i5 and not a U series i5, so it's like the lower power one. But I don't think that's the case. I think somehow they made it fanless. Which is fucking great, because like the most annoying thing about my Surface Pro 3 is that goddamn fan kicking in every time I try and do anything hardcore. And especially now that my Surface Pro 3 is really old, like it buzzes, so it makes this really like, buzzsaw noise whenever the fan kicks in and I'm holding it in the wrong way. So that's really fucking annoying. So I think all tablets should be fanless, because fans suck and I hate them. Fans blow too, but whatever. So I don't want fans in my tablets. The fact that only the Core i7 SKU is now going to have a fan in it is good. I'm assuming they probably need that because, like, again, the Core i7 is more powerful, and they're also including Intel Iris Pro graphics in the i7 SKU. So you're gonna get way better graphics if you go baller on the SKU as well. So that's pretty great. Specs are good. Kaby Lake, by removing the battery, or by some black magic deal with Satan they did, they're claiming that the new Surface Pro can get up to 13 and a half hours of battery life. That's up from like 6 or 7 on the previous Surface Pro. So they doubled the battery. How? I don't know. I'm assuming maybe by taking the fan out, they have more space for battery. And I think they also said they moved the SSD onto the motherboard itself, as opposed to having it be a separate component. So that probably frees up some chassis space as well for more battery cells. I'm gonna guess that's why they did how they did it. But there's more battery and more battery life in this device, and I think 13 and a half hours. Let's even say they're overshooting it. Let's say it gets around 10. If it has 10 hours of battery life, you're meeting pretty much iPad levels of battery, which is an ARM device, on a full x86 PC in a similar form factor. So like you're fucking, it's great. Even if you hit 10 is, once you get past 10, it's gravy as far as I'm concerned. If you can hit the 10-hour mark, you're doing really fucking good. I'll always take more battery life, but 10's where like the battery life is just a plus and not an essential for me. So if they can hit 10 in real world use, they're fucking golden. Like that's fantastic. So we have Kaby Lake. We have fantastic battery life. We have a refined design. We have a lighter design. We have a fanless design. We have a really fucking good pen. And we have optional LTE. So if you want to get, cellular data on your Surface Pro, you can do that now too. Which I think is long overdue. I was expecting it all the way back from like the Surface Pro 1, because when they were positioning the original Surface Pro as like an iPad competitor, I was always like, where is the LTE? Or at that time, 3G. Because like cellular connectivity was a huge selling point of the original iPad. They haven't reviewed how much of an upcharge LTE is going to be. I'm assuming it's probably around $100. So this is all good. I was like jonesing. I was reading these articles. I was like, fuck yes. This is like a day one purchase for me. This is everything I've been waiting for. They nailed the battery. They nailed the new hardware. Fanless. Fuck yes. I've been looking for Core M tablets that have 8 gigs of RAM because I want a fanless tablet or a fanless laptop or something like that, because like fans, it's my pet peeve. That and cables piss me off. So fanless is great. This is all super fucking good. And then I get into the nitty gritty of this shit, and that's when some things start to sour a bit, and the roller coaster's up here, and then we go down, and now we're in Lowville. Okay, so number one big problem: pen is no longer included. It's now a $99 upcharge. Oh, God. We've all been hoping that Microsoft would see the light and include the type cover in with the Surface Pro, because the type cover is essential to the Surface Pro experience. It can't replace your laptop unless you have the type cover. And the whole slogan of the goddamn thing is the tablet that can replace your laptop. It can, if you pay an extra $150 to buy our fucking keyboard cover. So they're still not including that, which I've given up hope for at this point, despite every other manufacturer doing it. Except for Apple, because of course. So the cover's still not included. The cover's more expensive now. They have the fucking special fabric, the a la whatever. I don't fucking remember what it's called. I don't care. They have a standard black one that's the same price, and then they have the fancy schmancy shit, the same stuff that's on the Surface laptop. That's like, I think, a $20 upsell on top of that. So hip hip her fucking Ray. That gets more expensive. But even bigger is that now you have to pay $99 for the pen. So that tacks on another $100 to the cost. So every SKU across the board, if you actually want the full Surface experience, is now $260 more than what you're actually buying. Which means this device technically starts at $10,050. Because the SKU for the low-end one is $800. But you got to tap on another $250 on top of that to actually get everything to use the Surface Pro with. I can understand probably why they decided not to include the pen, because the pen on this one is a lot more advanced. And I'm assuming that only creators use the pen in general anyways, like creators and note takers for like business, and that's a very small segment of the market, so they can probably make more margin off the majority of Surface Pro sales by not including that, and then they can make bigger margin off this more expensive pen, because previous generation pens were $59, now this one's $99, so they make more money off the pen for people who want it, and they get better margins on the Surface Pro SKU itself for people who would never buy it in the first place by not including it. Fantastic. I understand the business reason why they did it. Still fuck you for making me pay more money for something that's been included since the launch of the product in 2012. I think that was a big mistake. I can understand business-wise why they did it, but fuck you. That sucks, because that makes it more expensive. Because that's like, you know, like 12 to 8% of the cost of the device, depending on which SKU you go with. That's a significant amount of money of what the device itself costs, and I'm already having to pay more for the cover. There's a lot of upsells that are basically mandatory, and they can make it seem like, oh, it's $800, it's a good bargain, but it's not. And let's talk about the SKUs. The biggest boner killer with these SKUs is that how in God's name in 2017 are we still having SKUs, I'm saying SKUs a lot, but like models with 4 gigs of RAM on a professional product. They did this with the Surface laptop, starting it at $999 with 4 gigs of RAM, and I gawked. I thought it was stupid, but understandable. But now we get to the Surface Pro. Running Windows 10 Pro, gonna be running x86 apps, what it's designed to do, still 4 gigs of RAM. And it would be bad, but not horrible if it was just the first SKU with the Core M3, because it's a Core M3, 4 gigs of RAM, 128 gig SSD, $800. I think $800 for any device with 4 gigs of RAM is an insult, but fine, it's the low-end one, whatever. But you jump up to $1,000, it's a Core i5, and still 4 gigs of RAM! That's unacceptable! You can't... The biggest problem with my Surface Pro right now is that I'm constantly running at 100% RAM usage. No matter what I do, I use Chrome, the thing bitches at me constantly, please close your web browser, it's using too much fucking RAM. If I try and do any work, please close your application, it's using too much fucking RAM. Windows 10 cannot run on 4 gigs of RAM anymore. It doesn't work. There's too much fucking shit running in the background that needs more than 4 gigs of RAM. And again, if for the laptop, it made sense because it's running Windows 10s. And if you upgrade to that and you think 4 gigs of RAM is going to get you through, then that's your own fault. But this is a professional product made for the professional market to do professional work. 4 gigs of RAM, unacceptable. So what is the minimum amount of money you need to spend to get something with 8 gigs of RAM? The next SKU up is $300 more to get you 4 gigs of RAM and a bigger SSD. The only difference is a $300 upcharge. So now the device starts at $1299 to get specs that are actually usable, but then it's also another $250, so you're capping in now at over $1,500 to get into this device that'll last you. $1,500? What the fuck? That's insane. That's a fuck ton of money. Like, this is Apple level pricing. And it's just like, this is such a good device. It hits all of the fucking things that I'd want. By getting rid of the fan, by giving you a better pen, by giving you insane battery life. But then it charges you so fucking much to get there. Its first 2 SKUs are useless because there's not enough RAM. I was ready to buy it day one. I was ready to go pre-order it. The reason I saw these prices is I went to the store page to pre-order. I'm not going to spend $1,500 on this device because it's not worth $1,500. It's a great device, but the fact that you're going to upcharge that much is insane. It's fucking insane. For $1,500, you're getting quad-core i7, 16 gigs of RAM, like a terabyte hard drive, and a 512 gig SSD, and a dedicated GPU. You're still running integrated graphics at $1,500. The system isn't powerful enough to warrant almost, you know, a grand and a half, over a grand and a half. Because then you add tax, and you're hitting like $1,700. What? It's unreal. So I was ready, dude. I was ready to fucking pull the trigger on this, despite not even really having the money. But I definitely don't have almost $1,700, including tax, to buy a SKU that'll actually last me. I'm not gonna go spend like $1,000 to buy an M3 4 gigs of RAM tablet that's constantly gonna have memory issues. Nobody should. Nobody should buy that SKU. It should have 8. You know, right now I'm looking at like Chinese tablets and stuff. Obviously, I'm looking at like Chinese laptops. There's a laptop from a company called Cube, which I've talked about before, and I really want to test some of their stuff. It's called the Cube Thinker i35. It has a Core M3 Kaby Lake, 8 gigs of RAM, 256 gig SSD. Uses the same screen as the Surface Book, so a 13.5-inch 3000 by 2000 full metal unibody construction, and it has the digitizer built in. $600. Why would I buy an $1,000 tablet when I can get double the specs from something like that with a better display? That's my whole point, is that the Surface products are fantastic, but they're turning into Macs. They're turning into Macs. You're getting great shit, but you're paying way more than you should, and they're kind of in their own fucking ecosystem now, where their pricing doesn't make any sense when you poke outside that bubble and look at the real fucking world. And it sucks. It fucking sucks. Because just like Macs back in their heyday, they were fucking great, but you knew you were getting ripped off to get into it. You know, they had the bells and whistles, but they were charging way fucking more than the bells and whistles should be worth. Because if you have some extra great features on your product, that should be something that convinces me to buy the product. Like, if you're upcharging me on all of those, what you're doing is you're basically just saying, like, here's our value proposition. But it's not really a value proposition. We're holding these features ransom. Right? Because if I make a better mousetrap and I can price it accordingly, then I've put something better into the market. But if I make something that's better and then I charge way fucking more for it than anything else on the market, what I'm saying is that I'm going to take your extra money because I know that I'm doing something nobody else does, and I'm going to make sure that you fucking pay out the ass for it. I can understand the R&D and shit that probably went into this product is insane, and they need to recoup those costs. But it's just like, as a consumer, it feels like I'm being held hostage here. And it's just way, like, because there are companies, there are products that do that, where they provide a better experience for a comparable price because they just do it better. You know, you don't have to constantly charge for all these features. And the fact that, again, there are things that other companies are doing that they aren't, like including the keyboard. You're not getting a demonstrably better keyboard cover with the Surface than anything else. No, they're just nickel and diming you for it. And it's the same thing with the pen now, because the Wacom AES pens that a lot of these competitors come with are still really good because they're Wacom. And they're included. Even they had it included until today. I don't know. I have very mixed feelings right now. It's a great product, but I think it's just priced too high. It'll sell really well. But for poor people like me, we're just fucked. You know, it's that fruit hang up there that we want that we're never going to be able to get. So, if you can afford it, go ham, have a good time. That's not me. So, until next time, I'm Tom Oliver, this is Royal Pixels. Remind you guys, might be indie. That doesn't mean we're alone. Catch you in the next.